Welcome everyone to episode 9 of Spike Down. My name's LaFortune. Joining me is Gares. We'll cover last week's matches, teams' highs and lows, a little bit of a meta talk, and our always perfect predictions, except OR. Thanks for doing that to us. And speaking of last week's matches, a little bit of mayhem, but most of ours were right. Out of the gates, we'll go Tuesday to Thursday. Moist Moguls beating Mad Lions easily, and then M80 taking out Turtle Troop. It seems like our Tuesday predictions were right.
Moist just bulldozered Mad.
Yeah.
They looked insane that day. I remember I walked away from that game wow, I really had Moist way too low. On wherever I had them in my power rankings, they were too low. That's how I walked away from that game. They looked phenomenal.
Where would you put them? Would you put them top 4 now? Is that too much?
I think so. No, I don't think it's too much. They looked really good. I'm really excited to see how they look again against a better opponent this week. Mm-hmm. But I walked away from that match they used their off season really well.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of things, M80 versus Turtle Troop, I thought Turtle Troop looked pretty good in that series. How about you?
Yeah, I think so. And that's the thing about Turtle Troop. I feel at the beginning I was unsure going into split 1. I don't know. They're bunch of underdog kids, how's it going to be put together? And even with 2 changes, they still have kept some, normality. They didn't seem out of place by any means. And I think they're kind of on the precipice. I think they're a perfect 7-8 team. And I think if they can get a couple big wins and get some time in now with their 2 new additions, they could still do some damage, I'd say. How do you kind of view them overall? You think they're kind of right in the precipice of being consistently good and kind of in that area?
I think based on that series against M80, I'm pretty optimistic about them. They squandered that 9-3 lead on Fracture. That, I just feel as a team, they'll grow a lot. And then they almost came back into Haven, which M80 is normally really good on Haven. So
yeah,
I didn't really give them much of a chance there, to be honest, but they were competitive throughout the series, which was refreshing to see. I wasn't sure what we'd get out of them.
Yeah, I mean, Governor on the Neon and Fracture, 8-0 in first kill, first death. That's promising, especially for Neon, who's normally slide in going crazy. I think they have a lot of promise, and we'll have to see. Their matchups are so tough. That's the issue. But a close one out against M80 right out the gates. Wednesday, TSM Shopify. The Guard FaZe, TSM beating Shopify, the Guard putting up a fight against FaZe, ultimately coming off of it. You said nobody beats the Guard after a break. That rang true. I would say the TSM Shopify match was the main one that had me going, ooh, it's closer than maybe we thought it would be.
Yeah, I was really, really impressed on map 1 for Shopify, the Ascent game. I thought they looked so good. And the way they handled the Viper pick on Ascent, I thought they had a lot of good plays on the fly. And I was like, oh, this is great. And on Fracture, I thought a lot of things kind of didn't really go their way. It didn't look like the best performance. And then Pearl just kind of looked like it was underprepared a bit. But I will say I was giga impressed by TSM throughout this series. They looked really good to me. They were similar to how I felt watching Moist the day before. I watched TSM and I was like, okay, this team is definitely making playoffs this split, and they have a chance to make a deep run in playoffs. That's how I felt when I watched that best of 3. They looked so much more polished now that Kampeki's been on the team for some time and he had some practice time with them. So I don't know. This group is crazy. This group is really crazy.
I felt like they dominated early rounds, which seemingly was their strength. I felt like old TSM struggled early round, and then their mid round had to really make up for it. And now with Kenpeki getting comfortable, 7 really starting to come into his own and grow as a player, as a Sentinel main, he was destroying on Fracture. I don't think there's anything they could have done to slow him down. And now you look at this TSM team and you go, if they could keep winning these early round situations, three of their players positive in first kill, first death. They had Nature and 7 on Sentinel and like a Viper KO Flex positive first kill, first death. That's impressive to me. And I can't wait to see how this TSM team continues to grow. They're running cool comps. They have like 3 players flexing 3 different roles and agents. It's really cool to see. And of course, we ended the week with Thursday. Ye's return and jumping into the skies didn't go as planned. Oxygen taking a 2-0. And OR, the upset of the week, beating G2. That one was, what a wild series to end the week on.
Dude, yeah, that day was pretty crazy because I think Ye definitely like underperformed that in that first best of 3. But honestly, like that was such a show. I can't even imagine the pressure he had on him that day. Like, and just the lack of preparation going against Oxygen. Like, it was just such a cursed situation that he got put in. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, that's such a horrible situation to be thrown into if you're Ye. So I'm not really taking much away from that series, other than the fact that Oxygen is just significantly better, which is kind of what we expected early into the split. Like, I think I said that when I did my power rankings. I was like, I do not expect this guys to win this opening series. I think they'll get better as the split goes on. But yeah, this Oxygen team looked really good in that series. And then OR. Like,
what can you say about that, right? Like, it was wild to me. I mean, as OR, the split, I feel like G2 at this point, split's just an auto win for them. They're one of the only teams in Challengers right now that I feel nobody can touch them on split. I think they have that map so well drilled, and OR letting it go through, and even with that coming through, taking Haven and Lotus. I mean, the Lotus game out of OR, I think they are the Lotus team. It's still too early. I want to see more, but the comp they're running with the Gecko, Viper, Harbor, that's got to be the nastiest Lotus comp.
Dude, they made Gecko look pretty sick. Like, shout out to Vapin for cooking up some like nuts on Lotus with that Gecko. I really enjoyed watching that game. And yeah, like you said, I mean, watching that split game, that was like my takeaway. It was like, wow, OR did all their homework. They look amazing. But wow, G2 is still so much better on split.
Yeah,
and that's
not even close.
That's even with like OR knowing that G2 would pick split and all the footage they have on split. Shaz can call on that map. Like, that was like a masterclass what they did on split, I feel like.
And
that was
he
a really
plays
cool series to watch.
Really well on it. 20 and 10, Oxy 25 and 13, everyone else at 9. So really top heavy from G2, but what can you do? They're getting heavily supported. I really like the Astra. It's cool that they don't go Viper and they go the Astra Sage Cypher comp. I feel like your delay and your ability to get map control is so good with that comp, and it helps that you have Oxy. You can just run around on the Rays with no fear, especially with the tight corridors. Really cool. And let's talk highs and lows. We pulled up and we're looking through all the stats. We're seeing who's up there. Even with OR beating G2, no OR players in the top 20 rated. If I had to pick somebody who's like a standout who I was surprised to see in the top 20 would be Nerve. Although they lost their match, I must say, really, he was cooking. I'm trying to be a zoomer here. He was playing really good.
No, I knew immediately. I think because I had never watched Nerve play, I believe. So I was interested, but I was mainly focused on Ye. And then Nerve got in like a couple clutches. And I watched I don't even think he won the first one I watched. I think he was just jiggle peeking and off. But his awareness and how he jiggle peeked and like how he took the fight and approached the clutch, I was like, okay, this kid is going to be really, really good. I just know it. Like, I know when people take fights, like how they jiggle, how they move, their mechanics. And then I kept watching him throughout the series. Yeah, that kid is really, really good. Like, he's going to be insane. It makes me think Disguise is going to be a really, really good team. Like, once Ye feels comfortable, this team is going to be good.
Yeah, it seems like an awkward situation going over at DSG, but I think they have the right pieces. Another person who's topping the stats, and they did roll Mad Lions, but Brock, Aproto's up there, Thieves up there. Of course, the guard players. Brock continuing his domination is probably one of the best initiator players and challengers.
Dude, I swear, Brock is always dropping like insane amounts of kills whenever I watch him. Always. When he's on my team in ranked, always gets 30 kills. I'm not trolling. I've never seen Brock not get like 20 kills. He's so good. He's so good.
And what a series from those guys. Anyone on this list kind of stand out as like seeing Mitch up there is awesome. Shazam's up there. Yeah, is there anyone out there who jumps off the page and you're like, man, they're up there? Because it's all kind of the usual suspects.
It looks like the usual characters up here. That's all. I'm like going through it over and over.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the standout one. No, it's the usual characters.
The usual characters
standing out.
I guess I have a question for you while we're talking about, teams and stats and all those related. Do you see OR continuing their run here? Because keep in mind, they're bottom of the barrel from split 1. They really need to make up ground. And if they get first place, there's a chance they jump into playoffs.
Yeah? That was
a slight
insane.
One. Their next matchup, of course, is the guard. So that's G2 guard right out of the gates.
Yeah, so like they beat G2, but then they still got the guard, and they also still have to play Moist.
And FaZe, which has been a decent change.
I mean, FaZe got their doors blown off. Like they didn't look too hot in that opening game. And if you look at their history, I just went to their
It's a lot of red.
Go to FaZe's.
Yeah, it's a lot of red.
It's a lot of red. This is real maps. They haven't even won a map in their last 5 series. Holy shit.
Lose, they lose. Yeah.
They played some really insane teams, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
Oxygen, Moist, Guard, G2. Okay. But yeah, FaZe didn't look as good as I hoped they would, truthfully.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We had kind of high hopes with them. Mame coming in, obviously. Tig finding himself on this roster. They seemed very confident, and I could tell by talking from Superman from start of split 1 to now, his mentality shifted from an individual kind of, our team's better mechanically to more of a team-based mentality, which I love. Didn't seem to fit the bill. I also want to give a shout out to Rustin, Oxygen. He comes off
good.
He looked great. I mean, that guy's clearly still grinding, but he just fit like a glove.
Bro, that's ridiculous, actually. We glanced over it. Like,
I completely skipped that in my brain. Yeah.
They were insane with their assistant. What was the Rustin? They're like assistant.
I think
coach?
He's their coach or assistant. Yeah.
Well, he's not. Bonkar's the head coach.
Then he must be the assistant.
Coach. So their assistant coach is like subbing in, and they're just on disguise. That felt like
went +7, 42-35. Yeah, like what a crazy series, Rusted. And keep in mind, Oxygen also have that young gun in good old Reduxx coming in. So Randy Savage has been removed. Reduxx coming in. Now you have Reduxx and Verno together with Mitch, who seems to be playing. I hope I'm not doing any flops, but I promise you, just knowing from what I've heard and watching him play, he's flexible. He prefers duelist, but with Pony, your hands are kind of tied. I'm really excited to see what they can cook up. I think this kid should surprise a lot of people. And I can call him a kid because he just turned 16. So I think that's still appropriate to call him a kid. I don't know. I'm excited for you to see. And then when we reconvene week 3, I'm hopefully you can kind of see what I see, because I think this kid's going to be great. And if he can even just be 1/4 of Verno, they're scary.
So they play Turtle Troop this week?
Yeah, it's a great warm-up match.
That's a good warm-up match. I'm not going to lie. If this is a test. This is a test.
Yep. So I'm excited for that one. I can't wait. Let's talk meta. Let's talk about comps from Split 1, midseason face-off, and now heading into Split 2. We talked about a little bit of OR's comp and Lotus. We have a massive list of comps. We're going to just dive into a few. My eyes are kind of jumping at Lotus. A lot of teams continuing their old comps. I think the most consistent one has been a combination of Killjoy, Sky, Viper, Astra, Omen, with a little bit of a Harbor thrown in there. Then you can kind of tweak with the duelist. Some teams play Jet like Moist. Mad have a Raze, the Guard do a Jet, FaZe bringing in a Neon, but very similar comps. The OR comp to me is kind of the standout one that kind of screams uniqueness. It has that Harbor, it has that Viper, it has obviously the Killjoy, and you're getting the Gecko. I think Lotus is an always evolving map. I'd love your take on it, Sean. It's interesting to me that we have 2 maps with 3 bomb sites, and I think 3 bomb site maps really put importance on understanding what your map control grants you. And I think Lotus is more emphasis on that with the doors in B, the door at A, in comparison to Haven, where obviously you get garage control that allows you to do C splits, go back into B splits, and pivot, where controlling the door and understanding your space and timing is more important on a new map. And it seems like teams are starting to take to it really, really easily.
Yeah, I think OR had such a good take on Lotus. Like the way that they use their util on that map to just fight for, long A control on defense as well as attack. I just felt like the Gecko usage, particularly around A, was so solid. And their ideas when they approached the C site were equally as solid. I love Harbor. Like, I'm just a huge Harbor believer and buyer. Like it. Now, it's very tricky because you have to have someone that can play Harbor at a high level. And if you have a dog Harbor, you might as well not run it, right? You look at someone like Tui's, like, I cannot do what Tui's does. Like, the way I will give that guy props time and time again. What he does with his Harbor walls, like how he can wall consistently Heaven on A site Haven, and just the way he weaves his walls in and out perfectly. Like every time, super fast. Like that's what I envision when I see like a top level Harbor. So it's good to see like the tactical teams in challengers begin to, I guess, go that route, because it's going to take a lot of time, and it looks like OR is early on that train.
Absolutely. And Pearl, obviously still a really newish map. I'm a big fan of Auction Comp. I think I came in your chat and said it, and you're like, I'm kind of on the fence about it, but the KO Sova Astra with a Jet Killjoy from Auction on Pearl, their old comp was the Yoru one, decided not to run it. Maybe that was, our assistant coaches coming in, let's not get too crazy with it. Meanwhile, you have this, I feel like Pearl is kind of a map that keeps the core of Viper, Astra, Killjoy, and Astra kind of gets swapped. The Duelist leans to Jet. There's a couple raises. How do you kind of feel about the Pearl meta? Do you feel like it's finding its ground, or is it still in the air to me?
Yeah, I actually was a little disappointed in some of like the Pearl comps I saw. Kind of similar to what I was saying regarding like the Harbor and Lotus. I look in VCT in Americas and so much Harbor usage. And the teams that are running those Harbor comps on Pearl seem to have a huge edge against the teams that aren't running those Harbor comps. So much so that like the NA teams have all gravitated to these Harbor comps because they're trying to like catch up with the LATAM and Brazilian teams that are insane with those comps because they couldn't beat them with these other comps. So that's why I was a little bit disappointed to not see too much like Harbor Viper and Challengers, just because I know top level Harbor Viper beats these comps.
Yeah. And TSM even moved away from it. They were running the Harbor. I don't know if with the Viper at some point. They have an Astra now with a Viper, a Sky Killjoy Sova. So that comp to me, whenever I see a team make such a fundamental shift in comps to one that is off meta but in meta, kind of like at the same time, it screams comfort to me. Like maybe they don't have someone who can run that Harbor at a decent point.
Yeah, TSM's was really interesting with like the lack of a duelist and like obviously it's Astra Viper. I think like you can still get away with doing that kind of stuff. I think those comps are viable, but I think until like the B site gets changed or something changes with Harbor, his kit is just so oppressive on Pearl. And like the whole spam meta right now on when the spikes go down, it's just so busted, and it's very, very difficult to stop the way that like the VCT teams do in North America.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's nothing else. I mean, Fracture played 3 times is great to see. I think Fracture's a really good map. I know some teams don't like it because as a defensive team, if you sit on sites to get rolled, you have to be proactive, and that's what a lot of teams struggle with is how do we aggress on these teams to get map control without them just going the other site and pressuring us and pulling rotates. But to see it played 3 times, a few changes brought in. Shopify bringing, they had the Neon's out. They bring in a Jet, bringing in a Breach Fade type of combo. I think Fade at the beginning wasn't played heavily on Fracture, starting to get a little bit, her feet wet a little bit. I think the Fracture comps are kind of the most separated with a few needed, as in Cypher and Brimstone. And the other 3 are kind of switched out, which I kind of love.
Yeah, Fracture seems to be like a little bit unique right now when I'm watching like all these games in North America, right? Like even in like main BCT, like the initiators vary so much right now. I love the diversity of the agents we're getting on Fracture right now. Like we're seeing Killjoy and Cypher. I see like Com picking Sova in BCT. I see KOs here. I see Fades now getting picked, like you mentioned. I mean, there's obviously Breach is almost like a necessity.
Yeah.
Like other than, I mean, even some, we're kind of leaning away from like, the double controller style of Fracture. We used to see like, like Viper and Brim sometimes. But lately I haven't been seeing that as much. I'm getting a lot of like initiator diversity on Fracture, which is pretty cool. And it's continuing throughout challengers with a lot of these picks. I like the Fade pick.
I do too. Yeah.
The Jets, like, I feel like right now people are struggling to find how to play on Fracture because they want the punch of like the other duelists, like a Raze or a Neon, for example, because you can control a main really well with like the paint shells, the satchels, the stuns, like all of that can control a main really well. And like on attack, you can get map control really easy. But they also want like the Jet op because the Jet op is just so insane. So I feel like when you run this Jet, you have certain weaknesses. And when I see teams like Shopify run like a solo Jet on Fracture, sometimes it's really, really difficult to get value with that Jet. It's very hard to find value, especially when the other team's like running Cyphers and stuff.
Yeah, and Cypher's kind of been the go-to. And with Killjoy changes coming in, who knows? Maybe we'll see more Cypher on other maps, but Killjoy's still so good. We'll have to kind of see how those affect it. And now let's jump into our predictions. Last week, we were pretty good. I think we got nearly everything right but the OR one, so we'll see if they can throw another wrench in the works this week. Let's start with Wednesday. Oxygen, Turtle Troop, G2, Moist. My hot take for Wednesday, Moist beat G2, Oxygen beat Turtle Troop. I think the first one's safe. The second one, G2 Moist, going Moist might be a little risky, but they have looked so good.
God damn. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I feel kind of like a traitor doing this to my boy Shaz, but I kind of have to agree.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like, it's hard to pick against Moist right now.
It really, they look like so drilled.
Someone told me, by the way, like while I was co-streaming that G2 game, that they like just started practicing like a couple days before that OR game.
Man.
Like that's why they looked a little rough. So take that into account too when you look at that result. Like apparently, I don't know if I could be just bullshitting right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm trusting literally a random Twitch chatter, you know?
Yeah, taking a shot.
That's my sources. Sources trust me, bro, right now.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm
and are you taking the sources side and gonna go the Moist train because they look so good, or do you think, that's your choice?
Well, if I trusted the sources, I would think G2 would be like rebounding and look insane this week. I think I have to go Moist, man. Like I gotta buy in. I
like it.
Yeah.
I like it. The buy-ins have been done. Thursday, the Guard OR Shopify disguised. OR might have been able to take down G2 from the source, little unpolished G2. I don't think they can get over the Guard hump. Not yet. although their prep looks great, the guards seem to be one of the best reactionary teams that even if you know what they're doing, they could just flip a switch and you're like, oh, well, now we don't know what they're doing. I think the safe pick is guard. Shopify disguised from the turmoil, from what's happening over there. I would be very hard-pressed to pick Disguise, and Shopify need to win, so it seems like an easy pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think these are really easy games to predict. I would go the guard. I would go Shopify. It's a pretty big game, I would say, for Shopify.
Yep.
Like, out of all of the teams so far, I'm looking down. Maybe like G2 is a big game for G2 as well. But I would say for Shopify, this is a big game. Like, if they were to lose this game, it would feel terrible, right? Like, picking up Vanity, the new team, Steel's not playing this week. Disguise didn't look good in week 1. So I think it's big that Shopify walk away from this week feeling pretty good about the win.
Yep. And I would say I completely agree, and I'll even elevate a bit more. One, I think they desperately need and a must win, in my opinion. So that's why I think I'm going to go Shopify, that they know this as well. Friday, these games are spicy. At least the first one. M80 TSM, FaZe Mad Lions. FaZe Mad Lions not looking the greatest in their own respects, facing each other. M80 TSM. Do we believe in TSM here?
Shit, that's a hard series to predict based on what I saw.
Yeah.
Man, I don't lie. I'm not gonna lie. I think they can hang. I think that's a 3-mapper here.
Yeah.
But I have to go M80 though. Like, there's just no way. I feel like M80 will play up to their opponent here and just win.
Yeah.
Like, M80 looked a little bit shaky week 1, but I feel like here they play up to their opponent and they just dominate them.
Yeah.
In the third map.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that happening, and Koala Noob's been so consistently good. TSM have been great in their own right, but shutting down Koala Noob and playing that style is so hard, especially if it goes 3 maps. You're just so tired. By the time you get there, Koala just isn't. And he can keep that rolling. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go M80. It's safe. Maybe if it was week 4 or 5, a split 2, and I was feeling daring, maybe I would go TSM, but I kind of want to see if they can hang. I'm going to go M80. Now, the FaZe Mad Lions one, I would be cuckoo crazy not to pick FaZe.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so, right?
I feel that way.
Yeah. Jeez, it's so hard. When I look at their history, they haven't won a map in 10 straight maps. Like, that has to feel so bad being a FaZe player. And because they're good players, like,
Totally.
that's like that sucks the life out of the team, like that kind of loss streak. So I hope that their mental is still okay entering this match. I look for FaZe to, it's probably not going to look great, but at very least get a win, so that way their mental can get back on track, and at very least they can start looking like the team that we thought they would.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. This is FaZe's bounce back, and I hope it's the start to their run it back. But everybody, that's the show. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to follow Sean Gares and myself on our socials. Let us know what you think about our week's predictions. I think they're going to come true. And don't forget to follow Knightsarena to stay up to date on everything Challengers. And the matches are coming up soon, so stay tuned.